I'm going to call the evening session of our June 6 Johnston County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone who is here tonight in person and those who are watching wherever on YouTube. I do have an announcement to start with. We had a couple of appointments to make. We voted on those this morning, and I'd like to make those announcements now. To the Economic Development Advisory Board, Adam Caldwell was appointed. And for the Voluntary Agricultural District Advisory Board, Jay Shepard Barber and Betty Woodall were reappointed, and Jonathan Hardy was appointed. And I would make note that Ms. Woodall requires a waiver in length of service policy and would entertain a motion for that.
Mr. Chairman, I move to grant Ms. Woodall a waiver.
All right, do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of granting the waiver for Ms. Woodall to serve on the Voluntary Agriculture District Advisory Board, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have the approval of the agenda. Any discussion on that, or do I hear a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the agenda that is in their document.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda is approved. Next up, we have a visit from Miss Faith May, Miss Cleveland 2022. So, Miss May, would you like to come up and address the board?
Good evening.
Good evening. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity to share and speak with you all today. I'm Faith May, Miss Cleveland, and I'm so honored to be representing the Johnston County community at the Miss North Carolina competition in a few short weeks. To give you a little bit of background on me, I was born and raised in Greenville, North Carolina, and I'm a sophomore at East Carolina University. I'm studying fashion merchandising, but I do love to sing, and I am also pursuing a minor in opera and a minor in entrepreneurship because I want to be a business owner one day. I started competing in pageants when I was 9 years old because I had terrible stage fright and horrible anxiety about being in front of people, which is how I discovered the Miss America organization. And the Miss America mission statement is preparing great women for the world and preparing the world for great women. And I believe in this organization because it transformed me from an apprehensive little girl with really big ambitions into a woman who's ready to make an impact in my community. Competing in this organization really forced me at a young age to ask the important questions like, who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? And I found that my purpose is to share stories. Each candidate chooses a social impact initiative, and mine is called Literacy and Legacy. I fell in love with reading when I was in middle school. I was trying to find myself. I was really lonely, but I found comfort and companionship in the books that I read. And so in 2015, I started Literacy and Legacy by providing books to local organizations in need. I believe every child, regardless of their socioeconomic status, deserves the opportunity to have reading materials so that they can learn and they can grow, which is why I've donated 18,000 books throughout North Carolina since I began in 2015. But I wanted to take it beyond just getting books into the hands of people. I wanted to take my initiative a step further by changing the way that people view reading and really emphasizing the emotional intelligence that can be gained through reading. A University of Toronto study actually found that students who read fiction have higher scores on empathy tests. I recently published a children's book about the beauty of sharing stories and the way that reading can foster emotional intelligence. And I've been able to go into elementary school classrooms and use my book as a tool to practice those empathy skills with students. Those are skills that they're going to carry on throughout the rest of their lives. I'm sure all of you are since you're actively involved in local politics, you've seen the division in our country and in our communities. And I believe that literature can also be a helpful lens to examine social issues in a more personal way, which is why I started my book talk series on social media platforms where I share thought-provoking books from authors with diverse backgrounds, beliefs, and experiences. And if crowned Miss North Carolina, one of the things I'm most excited about is to go into middle and high school classrooms and bring my book talks in person. I want to work hands-on with high school students using the books that they're reading already in their curriculum. They're reading schools already books that have really meaningful dialogue about things that are going on in the world. And I believe Miss North Carolina is a public servant for all of the state, which is why she should be a part of those really vulnerable conversations needed to make our state more unified. I'm so passionate about competing for the job of Miss North Carolina, and that's really why. And I've shared my story throughout my time in the Miss Johnston County organization. I've gained $1,000 as Miss Cleveland that is going to support me in my educational goals and hopefully gaining more soon at the Miss North Carolina competition. So I am a listener as well as a storyteller, and I'd love to hear some of your experiences as well. My nickname is Fun Fact Faith. So if you have any fun facts about Johnston County, since you are all here from the community, things that I might not know, I'd be really interested to hear that.
I'd say we start over here. If there's a fun fact, it's coming from this corner right here. Yeah. No pressure.
When I was in a beauty pageant,
I'm gonna pass.
where do you get your books from?
I have had books donated. I started on Facebook, and people would Facebook message me when they were cleaning out their houses. So many people have books in their house that they're not actively reading or using, and secondhand donations have really been the biggest help for me.
We got a lot of books. Give me that contact information again.
The Facebook page?
Mhm.
It's Literacy and Legacy.
Okay.
Yes.
I wasn't prepared for a test, so I don't have an answer for that. But I will say that you are quite an impressive young lady, and I know that you'll accomplish great things in your life. And we appreciate you being here with us today, and we're very proud of you. And we wish you the very best. I know you'll make great changes in the world.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My fun fact would be that my daughter used to compete with you as well, Abigail Stevens. So if you guys don't know how much work goes into what she is taking on, I can't say enough good things about the organization and what they do for these young women and how poised they are. And so you're going to do fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm wearing purple. What else can I say? What else can I say?
You have coordinated.
Purple.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I would just echo some, I don't know if it's a fun fact or not, but when I was on the town council in Clayton, we became involved in the Miss Clayton pageant and got to know a lot of the folks involved in that, and I've always been very impressed with
Yes.
the young ladies in that. And then, as we shared earlier, my wife was in the Cleveland Chamber as a director when the Miss Cleveland first came on, so that always holds a special place in my heart. So I wish you the very best going forward. So
Thank you. I love the Clayton community. I competed at that pageant as well.
anything else? If
Good luck
not,
at Miss
thank you
North
very-
Carolina.
Thank you so much.
So we usually do a picture.
Yeah.
We're going to do a picture.
Do you have someone here with you today?
I do.
Yeah, she's.
Your mom. I knew she was sitting there. Oh, okay.
Her sister looks less
Yeah.
thrilled to be here than you. I'm just saying.
Everybody can just stay on the road.
Okay.
I'm gonna slide that way. Yeah.
You stand there.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Want me to get back then?
Okay.
You
All right, I'll let us all get in.
sister.
All right,
She's going to take a picture
everybody ready?
after Ben.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Awesome. Thank
All
you
right.
so
Thank
much.
you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, next up on the agenda is public comments. And before I read all the disclaimers, is there anyone here to speak to any item that is not on the agenda? And this would be the time. So we have one, so I'm going to read the disclaimer then. So this is a time for any member of the audience to come forward and address the board on an item that is not on the agenda. Please state your name and your general location, town or township where you reside. You'll be allowed 3 minutes to speak and address the board. And please remember to maintain proper decorum and maintain a civil manner. And again, this is an opportunity for the board to listen, and there will not be comments and replies and questions following that. So,
Okay, I want to hand out a book for y'all to take home, because this is going to be more than just a night I want y'all to think about it. I want you to sleep on it. Because I need some help.
Thank you.
I've had a lot of sleepless nights. It can just compile in the books.
Thank you.
This is on one of the cases.
Not one from tonight, I don't think, no.
My name is Jan Whitley, and I'm from the Brogdon community. And I'm here to talk
So,
about.
let me just ask from council, so can you tell which project this is? It's kind of hard for me, this tiny.
This is the Grabtown Road subdivision.
Is it appropriate for us to hear this in public comment? I just want to make sure.
You can listen, the case has been decided.
Okay, okay.
So it won't come before this board.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry, please.
So, okay. My thing is that
Could you tell us your name?
Jan Whitley.
Okay.
I am from the Brogdon community, and I'm here to talk about the Grabtown subdivision, which was a total surprise. We own the property. If you see the front, the picture, that's that yellow section that's all colored in around the green. We live on that yellow house, and we didn't even know the property was sold until we got a letter on a Thursday night, and it was for the approval of the subdivision. But my thing is, this is not a subdivision like your subdivisions, Mr. Smith. This is a subdivision that is in a very rural area, and there was 79 lots, but now there's 78 lots on 79 acres. No green space. It is in between two branches that run into the Neuse River, and there is sloping on one side of the property, which is erosion and runoff, and there's the flag lot. We're smothered by 18 lots around the house and down the path. And my thing is, when I've gone to the meetings, and so far, it's not been passed, but it's that everybody keeps going back to that minimum lot size, the rule that says they can be a certain 30,000 foot or so. But it also says in Chapter 14, it talks about the preservation of the rural character. And that is also referenced in the 2030 Comprehensive Land Use Plan. Now, it said, it's not exactly ordinance, but in some of this backup that I show, it calls it to be a part of the ordinance, because it says Chapter 14. It don't pull out one particular section in Chapter 14. It says Chapter 14 is the ordinances. And it also, in a section, which is like Section 6, it talks about laws, and it specifically calls out comprehensive plans and policies, or it says laws, so to me, that is a part of Chapter 14. Now, I don't think it's not a part that developers have had to pay attention to. But my thing is, I have got the backup information that proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that is totally incompatible with our area, because I did 26 roads, and out of those 26 roads, there's 23,979 acres, and of those 23,979 acres, there are only 175 acres, 0.76, that's less than one. There are 127 lots of which 50 of them are at least .9 to .99. And the other ones, I didn't look at the deeds, so I don't know. They could be more or less. And so that is totally it is totally incompatible with our rural character. And I have over here, where the commissioners adopted the comprehensive plan, and you seconded it, Mr. Braswell, but people are not going by it. When you, and I think it was the EPA, when I called up the EPA on the website, it directed me to Johnston. When it directed me to Johnston County, it directed me to the 2030 comprehensive plan. And there's something in here from the state forestry service. It talks about Johnston County comprehensive plan. So everybody is looking at that being a part of the plan, but then whenever we try to get the subdivisions, it's like it's not important. It's not a part, but it is. It's very important. And in our area, we have a volunteer fire department. We
Ms. Whitley, I do have, the time limit was 3 minutes, which was 2 minutes ago, but is there
No.
a summary point you can make? I think this
Well-
case has already been decided and denied by the planning board. So I just
well,
want to
when
see
you-
what your
okay,
ask of us is.
I get confused when I ask questions so when you say denied, or you mean it's denied totally, or is it going to be back up in another month or two?
I'll let our counsel
Okay.
answer that question.
So the case was before the planning board at the last planning board meeting, and the planning board voted to deny the application for subdivision approval. Now, whether a developer chooses to submit a different or an additional subdivision application, they can certainly do that. There's no prohibition about it, but the case that was before the planning board was denied. And so that is over at this point unless there's an appeal or something like that.
Okay, so unless they appeal it, then if it comes back up, it will come back up different than it looks now?
Not necessarily. It would be a different application. And the standards would apply the same as they do for every subdivision.
Okay.
And in this particular case, just for the board's reference, because this board has not heard this case because subdivisions only go to the planning board. But when you're thinking about subdivisions, that's a quasi-judicial determination, and it's based on the facts and evidence that are presented during that case. So we're not talking about zoning. The zoning was already determined to be appropriate. What you're talking about is whether or not the subdivision meets the standards of the ordinance.
Okay. But for future, I need an ordinance done to say that they follow adopted plans and policies of Johnston County in conjunction with land development codes and its purpose and intent. Because when it comes back up, it's still going to be the same. And I mean, it was denied, but everybody did not vote for it to be denied. And there is so many reasons that it should not be. If it comes back up like that, I mean, if it comes back up with 40-some lots, that's different. And there's the flag lot thing, I need an ordinance that says that there would be equal treatment for the existing landowners as well as the people who are part of the subdivision. So we need protection as a community, and I need protection as my family in this particular situation. But we want to preserve our community, and it's not like being unneighborly. We want it to be a slow, growth and reasonable, and there is a lot. And when you look at those pictures, it will show the river, and it's just a hop and a skip from this property.
Okay. Well, I think we get what you're saying. I know we have a land use plan that's being updated. We'll have some ordinances
Well, now
to follow
that's the
that.
same thing. The land use that's in there has got some of the same wording about the preservation.
So it's still in process, but we appreciate the time you took to put these individual books together for us. And as we go forward with our land use plan, we will consider what you said tonight as we do that. So
Thank you. for
thank
your
you very
time.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? And I don't think we have any additional email comments. Okay. Next up, we have a request for funding from Clayton High School and the surrounding community. So I think Dr. Bennett Jones is here to address us. Dr. Jones, good to see you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board of Commissioners. It's great to see you this evening. I come before you tonight on behalf of Clayton High School and Johnston County Public Schools to request funding for the field turf projects that have been put in place since 2021. To bring you up to speed, in the 2020, I was selected to serve on the Town of Clayton Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. And in that unique opportunity, I had the experience of being a dad who had coached in many volunteer leagues across Johnston County, as well as served in Johnston County schools since 2002. And so I had a unique perspective about what it was like to look for field space and building space for our Parks and Recreation Department. And so through collaboration with the town leaders, as well as Johnston County Public Schools and county leaders, we began to have discussions of what it would take for our school to become part of the Parks and Recreation program in Johnston County. And so those conversations took place in the fall of 2020. In 2021, we put together a proposal that we submitted to the Johnston County Board of Education and to the town of Clayton, requesting funding from both of those entities in the amount of $500,000 to install a turf field in the football stadium at Clayton High School. The rationale behind that was multi-purpose. One is that there were drainage issues on our field that rendered it unplayable in many cases. Two, we had to limit the use of those fields in order to preserve the field. At Clayton High School, we were very much landlocked, and so we did not have adequate practice space for our multiple teams, as well as we had extended request for outside groups to use our field space. And so with a barrage of requests from community groups as well as our own needs, we looked at a multi-use surface so that we could have multiple sports to be able to use it throughout the year, as well as to open up our gates to outside entities. In May of 2021, the Johnston County Board of Education did approve our proposal, as well as the town of Clayton did as well, and entered into an agreement which created a joint use agreement between the town and the school system, opening up our doors at Clayton High School to be able to better serve our community by allowing access to our gyms, our playing fields, and as well as our other entities that we have at the school. Tonight, I come to you to seek the final piece of the puzzle, which is the installation of a second field. That was approved by the Johnston County Board of Education at their May meeting. And so my request to you is to seek funding to finalize the project. The original plan was to seek a $500,000 grant from the Johnston County Board of Commissioners through the Parks and Recreation programs to expand our access, our facilities to not only residents in the town of Clayton and Clayton High School students, but to the many outside groups that also utilize our field space. We host Clayton Rugby, which has students from across the district who utilize and play on Clayton Rugby's multiple teams, from youth groups being 5, 6, 7-year-olds, all the way up to a female high school team and a male high school team. We also have opened up our fields and our gyms to the Neuse River Football Alliance, and where we've had soccer tournaments. And again, those organizations have county residents involved in them across our county. We've also hosted 7-on-7 tournaments in football just in the opening of our one football stadium. The plan, as you see before you, was to install a turf field on our old soccer field to allow us to have 2 multi-purpose fields. We are adding lacrosse next year. Both the plan is for both men and women's lacrosse, which again will now utilize our fields more often. in terms of what we are able to offer our students, but it does come at the cost of having to find field space for them. So there's a domino effect as well, is that every time that we host something for the town, and I have Mr. Scott Barnard here with us, who is the Parks and Recreation Director from the town of Clayton. Mr. Adrian O'Neill has been vital in this conversation as well as to how we were looking to expand that. Mr. Brooks Moore is also here representing Johnston County Public Schools and his facilities as well. So our ask is for an appropriation of $500,000, which was the initial ask. To get the project completed would be roughly $125,000. I put in the letter to you $150,000, just with the skyrocketing costs, not knowing when this was going to come forward. It seems like every time we talk to vendors, the cost of materials has increased, the cost of labor has increased. The reason for the difference in those two is that we were able to secure additional funding from the Johnston County Public Schools that is designated right now to increase or to improve the infrastructure around the stadium. Our field house is in a dilapidated shape. It was built in the 1980s, and it is not in good condition. In addition, our bleachers need to be expanded and repaired. We were up for a bleacher renovation in 2016, and due to budget constraints at that time, it was simply put to a renovation instead of a overhaul and expansion. And so, as a 4A high school, as the second largest school in Johnston County Schools, we have the fourth smallest set of home bleachers in Johnston County. So we're roughly about the size of a 2A size bleachers instead of a 4A size school. So the ask is that you would consider a $500,000, which was the initial award, and if so chosen, then that would allow us to bring the entire project to completion. I do want to share with you, we were able to secure $250,000 from the NFL through the NFL grant. So we did seek out other funding sources to help us with this project. And my ask to you is not only to consider it for Clayton High School, but we feel like strongly this is a template that could be utilized across Johnston County schools as a way that the school system can open up its doors and fields to the community and could be truly a community partner in parks and recreation programs. If you ever ride by Clayton High School in the last 6 to 8 months, you would ride by there and see lights on most of the time at nights, and there are youth groups out there all the time. We do not chain our gates. We have our walking track available to our residents all the time outside of school hours. Our tennis courts, our fields have been utilized by multiple people and multiple groups, from individuals just wanting to get exercise with their families to community groups that would like to have organized activities. And so we're very proud that we are really a community partner, not only in the town of Clayton, but to Johnston County as well, in how we open up our facilities and provide access to the Johnston County residents. With that said, I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Dr. Jones? So I did have a couple questions
Yes, sir.
that you could explain. So the agreement with the town, does the school handle the programming, or I say program, other than the actual Clayton High School programs, but does the town handle the scheduling of the fields otherwise?
Yes, sir. So in part of the agreement, the school designates and outlines when it's going to be utilized for the various teams and programs from our school. That has the first priority. And then those hours outside of when there are no sports activities, it all funnels through the town of Clayton. So if a outside group wants to rent the fields, if they want to utilize space or book a field for a baseball game or a 7-on-7 tournament, then they will communicate with the town. And we have a shared calendar access to where the town and the school system work to make sure that those fields are reserved for those outside groups.
And I think the question came up from Commissioner Braswell early on another request we had, in-town versus out-of-town rates for the different groups that would use those facilities. Are they similar or different?
Mr. Barnard, I'll let you answer.
Sure thing. Yes, we do have a in-town rate.
Step forward to the microphone. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, we do have in-town rates and out-of-town rates, and the difference is roughly 20%.
So is that for the different groups? So if you mentioned lacrosse and if the other lacrosse or
Correct. If
baseball
we're
or whatever.
approached by a lacrosse group, they want us to reserve fields for a tournament, we quote them both rates, 9 times out of 10, they've got a resident in town that's, willing to book the reservation in their names. However, there are examples, maybe a third-party group might approach us and say, hey, we're going to host a rugby tournament, and we want to utilize all the space, and that rugby group, would be booking Powhatan fields, fields at East Clayton Community Park and at the high school, and sometimes those groups are coming from out of town, and they pay the out-of-town rates.
So I just want to make sure. So then, if you had a group who was using it for a season, not just an event, but for a season, are there still the in-town, out-of-town?
Yes, sir.
Rates on that? Okay.
And to add to that revenue is shared 50/50 between the town. The town has taken over ownership of the maintenance of the fields, and so that is a deferred cost that we have deferred out of our school system budget into the town of Clayton has picked up as part of that agreement. So the field cutting, the lining, the maintenance for fertilizer, those things as well. So that money that's utilized from there is split 50/50 to help offset those costs.
Can I,
Mr. Braswell, yes.
can I piggyback on that question?
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Jones, the question to you be, and certainly clarification, and maybe to the Clayton Town and Recs personnel, you were asking for taxpayers throughout the county for money, but then you're going to charge them more. How do I make sense of that?
Sure thing. Mr. Commissioner, the revenues generated do not offset the annual cost of maintenance, but that's where those dollars go toward, is toward the operational budget coming from the town of Clayton. So, I'd say in a great year, we might clear between $15,000 and $20,000 of rental revenue on a facility of that size if we're really, clicking. But our annual operation costs are going to approach 6 figures.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I think the question, if I may
Yes,
add,
yes,
sir.
I think what you're getting at is that a citizen that lives in Clayton is paying Clayton taxes, and they get a break on the utilization of a Clayton facility. But if we invest $500,000 of county tax dollars, then the rest of the county has skin in the game too, and should they be charged a higher rate? Mr. Braswell, is that where we're going on that?
I was just wondering, all of a sudden we become a stakeholder too.
Sure.
And the citizens throughout the county become a stakeholder.
And I don't want to speak for Mr. Barnard, but I think that as we're charting these waters of the first type of agreement, I certainly wouldn't have any problem with it being a flat rate. That generally is what utilized in Johnston County Schools for an hour rental of a gym or those things as well. So I think that is certainly something that we could consider as an opportunity there for us to learn and the growth of that opportunity, that if it is utilized. Generally, it has been, and Mr. Barnard will tell you, generally our preference is to rent to groups that are going to be there routinely. So Neuse River Football Alliance, for example, they know where the areas are, they know where the facility, they know how to take care of it. So that group generally has somebody there. Clayton Rugby the same way has somebody that has been a town resident. But I certainly would not have any problem with making a blanket statement that says that this is one flat rate that would go across there. Now, the gentleman here from Clayton might have a piece of that, but I think as the school system, I think that falls in line with what our general policy is right
He
now.
might get in trouble with his bosses.
Yeah. So I did want to clarify though.
Yes, sir.
So you were talking about to finish the turf projects, 125, 150,000, and then the other 350, 375 is for press box and bleachers.
So I don't want to misspeak. So the school system actually came up with more than the 500,000. They allocated 750,000 in a request to you where they reappropriated some bond funds from one project that they were able to cover out of ESSER funds and were able to switch that toward this project. And so that additional funding there was set aside for that piece. The two fields has remained pretty much about the same. It's about $850,000 for the initial football stadium and about $740,000 for the soccer field stadium. Reason being is the soccer field doesn't have as much room on the outside of the field's space as the football field did. And the football field needed quite a bit of site prep, where the soccer field does not need quite as much for that site prep work. So it's a little bit cheaper, but to be the total cost is about $1.7 million for both fields. which would be covered if we did 500, 500, 500, and 250 with the NFL grant, and then that additional funding from the school system allocated toward that, the field house, the press box and the stadium renovations. So if obviously if we received 150, then that additional money would have to go toward just getting the two projects done, the two fields, and we would not have the money for the field house, the press box or the bleachers.
Mr. Chairman, I'm confused. And Bennett,
Yes, sir.
I'm confused too.
Yes, sir.
When we were supposed to consider this last month, my memory is we were talking about 150,000. That was the number we were talking about. So I thought that was the number we were going to come deal with tonight. And then out of the blue, that number goes from 150 to 500,000. Am I reading?
Calculation at work.
Yep.
So, not quite that. So, yes, sir, and I'll be glad to edit Mr. Smith if I can. In the letter that I submitted with this information, the original scope of the project was to ask for $500,000 from each entity, the Johnston County Board of Commissioners, the Johnston County Public Schools, and the town of Clayton was the initial ask. And then the submission of the NFL grant for $250,000 was the in total cost. The hope at that point in time was that the fields would be about $1.4 million, and then if the 1.75 came through, that it would allow us to have some improvements in the infrastructure as well. With the additional cost, we added some safety features in the fields. We added cool play, which helps to take off some of the heat that is generated off of that. And we also went with a bigger pile, which allows for a safer surface in terms of that piece. And so when we added those additional costs in, plus the cost of materials there, it has gone up. You're right, the $150,000 would cover the completion of the fields as is. That would cover that.
Ben,
Yes, sir.
let me tell you where I am. I'm like the Apostle Paul. I got a battle going on inside me, and I don't know which way to go. I think on the good part, the partnership between the town and the schools is a great thing. Our schools not being used all the time is one of the biggest wastes we have in Johnston County. So this is a good model. That's number one. Number two, that field house you talked about that was built in 1980, I built it.
Yes, sir.
And the best times in my life have been in that stadium watching three boys play football and one girl be a cheerleader. So I have a lot of me really wants to support you, because and my wife taught in that school. We're invested in Clayton High School. But I hear Commissioner Braswell and others, and we have a greater duty to all of Johnston County. And so I guess I got comfortable with $150,000. And of course, this is a school, we got a school board that deals with this stuff. And all of a sudden tonight, I get $500,000. And I think about all the other schools. If every other school in Johnston County came to us and asked for $500,000, what would we do? Would we, through equity, which is a very popular word today, give them $500,000 to every school? Or how would we do that? I am struggling to come up with a fair thing to do, because I want to vote yes.
Yes, sir.
For a lot of emotional reasons. But I'm just struggling with the math. I'm struggling with the fairness with the rest of the county. I'm struggling, like Commissioner Braswell talks about, as to why, if we invest that money, we invest $500,000, and we're talking about $15,000 a year in maintenance, the interest on $500,000 is more than $15,000. So I asked someone, whether it be this board or you or someone, to help me with the dilemma
Yes, sir.
that I'm in.
And thank you, Commissioner Smith. I know we've had conversations, and I know how much the school has meant to you. And you are right. We worked on the initial operation of it. Let me just make this clear. I would say $150,000 would finish the project. It would not allow for us to expand the bleachers or to address the press box, but it would allow us to finish both fields. And that is the ask. That is the initial ask all along was going to be for $500,000 to do that. And to answer your question about other schools in the district, I have talked with my colleagues, and I would certainly encourage all of them to reach out, because I do think the agreement is a powerful thing between towns and municipalities, and sharing some ownership as well as sharing some of the financial responsibilities. But also, it's the responsibility of our schools to open up our doors to our communities and not put locks on gates and not keep people out during times when people can utilize those spaces as well.
That's fantastic.
And so I think that is an onus on us as well, that in a true partnership that there is, our schools, you have invested a lot of money in some school sites across this district that are way more larger than Clayton High School. And they could certainly be utilized by a bunch of different groups in the county. And so I think creating these type of agreements and this type of ownership, I would tell my partner, if they wanted to seek money from this board, that they also work hard on creating those partnerships between municipalities and getting people to invest and be willing to open up their doors to say, hey, we want youth groups to come into our school and to come into to utilize our campus.
So let me be sure.
Yes, sir.
Are we voting on 150? Are we voting on 500?
I would.
So let me clarify
That is up to
for
you to make the.
So I would say if you need to get started on this TURP project, that you keep your request to that 120, 150.
I would.
And we can consider the other at budget time.
I presented both to you, and I'm at your.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say if
Let you make your determination.
Yeah, it might be a different outcome.
Yes, sir. I understand.
So
I just felt like to be transparent. Like this has been out there in the public since 2021. I presented this slideshow.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion. Get things going. I make a motion that we fund this at the 150 or 100.
We'll go with I'm fine with 150.
150,000 on the condition the town of Clayton changes its policy to charge county residents a premium to use that facility. If the town doesn't want to change that, that means it will not be funded.
So you're saying you set a premium, but you mean that whatever, if you're a town resident or a county resident, your organization wants to rent it, which I think
Be the same.
Martin said, typically there's somebody in that
It's the same
organization.
rate, because we're investing this money.
I understand.
To the betterment of the county.
All right, so we have a motion. Do I hear a
Mr.
second?
Chairman, I'm going to second that. To add a caveat, I think you could have an out-of-county rate if you know that people who book it, So I think you can have an out-of-county rate, which is good. And also with the caveat that only 5 of the high schools are not located within the municipality, so they have no help, and they're out in the county. But anyway, I second Commissioner Smith's motion.
Commissioner Smith, is that amendment for the out-of-county rate?
Sure.
Okay. Good. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I just have a question for the board. I mean, I'm fine with it, and we can move on with it. But would we do this at budget time, or are we going to go ahead and just do it tonight? I mean, I guess the intent is to go ahead and do it now.
Yeah, from what I understand, the project's active.
Need it right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is this year appropriation.
Roll on with it then.
That's what I understand.
Yes, sir, just, the NFL grant is on a timeline.
Okay.
So I do- Yes.
Let me just say, there's a part of me not 100% with this motion. But the thing that I believe is so important is the relationship with the school and the city
I agree with that.
to open that facility. We've got to find a way to utilize the tremendous money we have in schools for other people to use them. When I developed Riverwood, and I gave the school board 35 acres to build 2 schools, I had a contract with the school system that the people in Riverwood could use those facilities. That did pretty good for a little while. But as time went on, the principals decided they didn't want to put up with that. And they didn't let us use it anymore. And I just think that this model is a good model. And I personally, although as you well know, I'm not willing to invest money in anything other than a legitimate government function, I believe this is a legitimate government function, and that it is a model that we can make better use of our school facilities.
Well, in tying that back in with Mr. O'Neill and the board's intent when we hired that, or appropriated that position, it was to foster these type of relationships with the school systems, because the comment was made that we've got a lot of parks and recreation facilities, they're called schools, and the taxpayers already paid for them. So, in the interest of that, then I support your.
Well, yeah, there's nothing prohibiting you, Dr. Jones, to take another bite out of the apple for next year's appropriation.
I certainly appreciate that.
But there's nothing stopping you from doing that.
And there's nothing prohibiting you from turning around talking to that man sitting behind you with an orange shirt and get him to fund it.
Yes, sir, we will continue to do that, yes, sir.
All right, so any other discussion? We have a motion and a second, so all in favor of the motion?
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I was out of the room. Would you restate the motion?
So the motion, I believe, is to appropriate $150,000 for completion of the synthetic turf field. The rates will be the same whether you're in the town of Clayton or out of the town of Clayton, and there will be consideration for out-of-county rates, and this all, the rates is subject to the town of Clayton approval of those rates.
A common theme that I've been hearing from residents who move here from other areas is we don't have any recreational facilities in the county. And of course, that prompted us to hire Mr. O'Neill. And I think as Patrick said, and some of you have said, we've got those facilities, just haven't been using them effectively. So I support this move. I'd like to see it go countywide.
I think that the man in the orange shirt that was referred to is part of that. I think we've seen a lot more cooperation with the school system over the last 2 years in that arena, so hopefully we'll see that spread. So we have a motion and a second, so all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all.
Hey, Brooks, write him a check. Cool.
All right, next up, we have 4 public hearings for rezoning and/or conditional or special use requests. First up is case 2206. I will open the rezoning hearing and ask our planning director, Braston Newton, to come forward and give us the background.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good evening. Case 22-06 is a request were to rezone 1.30 acres located in the 14,900 block of NC 210 in the Pleasant Grove Township from agriculture, residential, or community business. Owner and applicant Adolfo Aguilera. Services are provided by 5210 Fire and Rescue. The existing land uses, the property is vacant. Surrounding land uses include those for agricultural purposes and and some retail, including but not limited to a gas station, convenience store, and a used car dealership, among some other businesses as well. Traffic along NC 210 is 2,300 vehicles per day in this area, and that is a 2020 count. This portion of NC 210 does appear on the county CTP, where Comprehensive Transportation Plan is an existing boulevard needing improvement. Property is located in a primary growth area as identified in the county's Comprehensive Land Use Plan. Staff recommendation is approval of the request. Be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? I would just say the commercial business is on 3 of those 4 corners.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, if no questions of Mr. Newton, I will ask that the applicant come forward and give us any information he feels pertinent to his case.
Yes, well, I just want to put like a small business there. Some been laying brick all my life, and I'm just ready to do something different. Slow down, rest a little bit. Yeah.
Well, let me know if you need any help doing that. Doing that. Any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you. Any questions or comments from the public? You can sit down. All right, I'm going to close the public discussion portion of the hearing and ask Mr. Newton to come forward and summarize and present the planning board's recommendation.
Yes, sir. Planning board does recommend approval of the request and does offer a resolution and statement of consistency for your consideration.
All right, any other questions or clarifications needed from the board before I close the public hearing? All right, thank you, Mr. Newton. So I will now close the public hearing and turn it over to the board for consideration and/or motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt the statement of consistency resolution as presented in the agenda pack and approve the rezoning request.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Let us know how slowing down works.
Yeah. All right, next up we have case 2212. I will now open the rezoning hearing and ask for Director Newton to come forward and give us the background and any other discussion we need to hear.
Yes, sir. Case 22-12 is petition rezone 35.2 acres located in the southeast corner of the intersection of NC 50 and NC 42 in Cleveland Township from agricultural residential to general business. The owners are various, Bobby Joe Smith and several others, and those are all listed in your report just for sake of time. The applicant is White Development Company, services provided by 5210 Fire and Rescue. The existing land use, they are vacant parcels, and these are multiple parcels. The surrounding land uses, there's vacant for the majority, and then as you cross NC 50 and NC 42, on the 3 remaining corners of this intersection, there are various retail developments, from a strip development anchored by Lowe's Food, to a Sheetz and a Food Line in the northwest corner, and then some small business in the northeast corner of the development. So this would round out this intersection. As far as traffic concerns, traffic for this portion of NC 50 is 10,500 vehicles per day. This is a 2020 count. For NC 42, This 12,500 vehicles per day, once again, this is in 2020 count as well. Both of these appear on our comprehensive transportation plan as boulevards or existing boulevards needing improvement. And there is a project that is funded, however delayed, for construction to widen NC 42 in this area east from NC 50 east of this to the interchange of I-40 that is already funded. It is just, it's been pushed back some by NC DOT. The land use plan, this property is designated as a primary growth area in our comprehensive land use plan. And this is actually identified as a major commercial activity node as well. Be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? All right, if not, I'd ask if the applicant come forward.
Mr. Chairman, good afternoon. Members of the Board of Commissioners, good to see everybody. I do represent White Development Company, good group. I have with me Mr. Steve Hove and Mr. Jason Powers. They're here on behalf of the developers. Maybe, Steve and Jason's outside back here. We have Mr. Brian Leonard, who is our consultant. He's also our surveyor, has done a lot of work. So if there's technical questions on this, please let me know. We've got the resources here to answer any questions. We've got the all of the owners represented by Mr. Jason Wenzel. So on the application, all the owners have submitted this to be approved. I will tell you, it's been a somewhat challenging site just because of the location. And there was a lot of study and thought given to how to proceed on this project. And ultimately what was decided, and I think rightfully so, was the general business designation. And I think there was some preliminary discussion as to a different type zone. But that's what they've gone with. That's what's here. And I think at the planning board, they were receptive, and I think it was little to no opposition at the planning board. So I would submit to you, Mr. Chairman, that the general business rezone designation for that area is how they want to proceed. Now, with that, I do agree with staff. The roadway, the location is a challenge. I don't believe it's actually listed, but you do have a TIA on this project, and I think that probably is with your materials. I didn't see that listed, but if it's not there, it's out there. So the TIA is there. That has been a little bit challenging with the DOT, but they're working, doing what they can to make that work as to what DOT is requiring. So with that said, if you've got any questions, as of me or of any of the people I have with me, we would be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions
I have
for
one,
Mr. Hewitt? Or
I have one, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
The back of this property goes down to a creek down there.
Yes.
How much of that is lowland or wetland down there in the back of that property?
Mr. Brian Leonard is here.
All right. I want him to earn his keep tonight.
Yes. Pass. Brian Leonard.
Good evening, Board. My name is Brian Leonard at 112 East Johnston Street, right here in Smithfield. We have not quantified the area in wetlands, but it seems to be confined to the buffer zones. You know, that is a buffered stream up to a certain point. And at this point, I believe most of those wetlands are confined to the buffer.
Okay.
It's a very steep ravine, is the best way to say that.
I'm familiar with the land on the other side of the creek, and I know it's low for a long ways over there.
That's correct, and there'll be some challenges just to construct the entrances out to 42.
Right.
But, yeah.
Okay.
So are there, just let me make sure, so the stream, does that run between what is the bigger parcel 1 and 2 and 3 on the north side? Or is there another one on the east side that's as well?
Yeah, there is the main branch, and forgive me for not knowing the name of that branch, but the jagged line that runs along most of the length of our project is basically tributary to the main channel which crosses 42.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Leonard or Mr. Hewitt or anyone else on their team?
Buffalo Branch, it says. Buffalo Branch.
All right. I think that's it. Anybody else here to have any comments? All right. If not, I'll close the public discussion portion of the hearing and call Mr. Newton to come forward and summarize and present the planning board recommendation.
As it relates to case 22-12, staff recommendation is approval, and planning board does recommend approval as well and offers a resolution for statement of consistency for your consideration.
All right, any final questions for Mr. Newton? Any other discussion? All right.
I'm confused.
One second here. That's the next.
Okay.
Are you not confused now?
I'm not confused.
Okay, all right. So with that, I will close the public hearing and turn it over to commissioners for their deliberation and/or motion.
I just want to confirm something. When it comes to where the entrances are dictated, that'll all be done at future meetings through the planning board and the planning department as far as where the ingress and egress on this land is going to be on 42 and 50.
Yeah, so if the rezoning occurs, any physical development will be subject to our commercial site plan review. And at a staff level, and internal and external agencies, to include NCDOT, will be involved in that review. So, yeah.
I just wanted to confirm and make that public, clarify.
Yeah, the 800-pound gorilla is DOT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt the statement of consistency resolution as presented in the agenda packet and approve the rezoning request for case 2212.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have case 2213. I will open the conditional zoning district hearing. And Mr. Newton, I'll once again call on you to give us a background and any other information we need.
Yes, sir. Conditional zoning case 22-13 is a request to rezone 3.04 acres.
Let them get seated, and then that way we can hear. You have one on the front row. Oh, you're good. Okay. Just like church, nobody wants to be up
Sit on the
there.
front row.
On the front.
All right, Mr. Newton, if you would, proceed
sir.
on.
Case 22-13 is a request to rezone 3.04 acres located at 5350 NC Highway 42 in the O'Neill's Township from agriculture residential to community business conditional zoning district.
Could you hold on one second? There's a seat up front if somebody wants to take that one. All right. Yeah. So I think if you want to switch up after this one so we can continue on, we can't hear when the door's open and people are talking, so. All right, let's try again.
Yes, sir. Case 22-13 is petition to rezone 3.04 acres located at 5350 NC 42 in the O'Neill's Township from agriculture residential to community business conditional zoning district. The applicant owner is Sheets 1 LLC, applicant Amin Saleh, and the conditional zoning request is for a convenience store. Services are provided by O'Neill's Fire District and Thanksgiving Rescue. The property is currently zoned AR and is vacant as far as the land use. Surrounding land uses are residential and agriculture, and I-2, which is a milling company, which is Atkinson's Mill. Traffic concerns for this area, NC 42 East is, the traffic count is 5,000 vehicles per day, and that is a 2020 count. NC 39 is 3,500 vehicles per day, and that is a 2019 count. Both do appear on our comprehensive transportation plan as existing major thoroughfares with adequate design capacity. The land use plan designates this property as an agricultural rural conservation area, and staff be glad to answer any questions you may have at this time. Once again, this is conditional zoning request, and there are conditions, if you'll note, the conditions that have been proposed and agreed upon to this point between staff, planning board, and the applicant. and they are there and listed in your packet.
And there are 11.
That would be,
Those-
that would be correct, 11, and the 11 is a number of TIA recommendations resulting from that transportation impact analysis.
All right, any questions of Mr. Newton at this time?
I have one, Mr. Chairman. How long, do you recall, Mr. Newton, how long our countywide zoning has been in place? So what, 30 years?
Not, the entire county has not been in place 30 years, roughly 22 years.
Okay.
In that range, yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, if no other questions, I will ask the applicant to come forward.
Mr. Chairman, again, glad to be here. Chip Hewitt, Hewitt Law Group. We represent the applicant, and he is present. We also have Mr. Bill Rowork here. He is an engineer on the project, and he's prepared to answer any technical questions. When you look at this area, part of the reality is we get it. It's rural. It's out in the part of the county that's been rural for a long time. And it really, I think the scenario is the growths go into it. And whether that's a good or bad reality, that's just part of the reality that you're dealing with. When they were looking at this project initially, the proximity of it to being a gas station came to be a fairly decent idea in that when you look at the location from here to different areas, it's in a good spot to have a gas station. And as the board well knows, there's been a lot of work in that area right in front of that, which is the turnabout area off the 39 highway zone there. And what the applicant did, there is a TIA in there. He has done what he can with DOT. He's prepared to follow the recommendations of what they did say in that area. And they're trying to come back off enough to where it sits on site such that if there's additional work out there, it'll be a decent in and out area for the service station. Now, I will say when we did have the planning board meeting, there was some local opposition, and we understand that. I don't think anybody wants any type of commercial activity to come near their residential properties. But I would say to you, in this circumstance, if you're going to have a commercial area, it makes sense here, because when you start putting your finger here and going east, west, north, south, whatever, it's in a decent area to have a gas station. And actually, one of the comments from one of the planning board members was it's good to have something in the rural area out here because of where it's located. Now, having said that, we went through a lot of debate at the planning board level with the conditions. And you'll look and see the applicant looked at that and basically conceded and agreed to most of the conditions. Heavy lighting at this project. The gas pump, there was questions about limitations on the hours. You know, what the conditions were recommended by the planning board that were ultimately approved, he will agree to. So it's not an outright, okay, you approve it, it's rezoned, and then the business gets there. Your conditions that you have in front of you, I would submit, are somewhat regulatory. It does restrict exactly how this property is going to be affected. It's not like 24/7 a roundabout area. The conditions restrict that. So with that being said, Mr. Chairman, we're here. Any questions? I do have the owner and also our engineer.
Chip,
Yes, sir, Mr. Smith.
is that where the roundabout is?
Yes, sir. Right, straight from it. That's exactly right. Yes, sir.
And as far as those 11 conditions, are they acceptable to the applicant?
As it was approved from the planning board, Mr. Chairman, that is correct. He will live with it.
Any other questions? Anyone else in the audience here to speak to this issue? Both for or against?
I think everybody's waiting for somebody else to get up.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Name and address. Okay.
I'm Tim Nairn. I live at 9160 Highway 42 East, Selma. I'm just below this property. In fact, I grew up in that area. In the 60s, there were 3 stores in that area, Snipes, Wilbert Michaels, and Arnold Creech. In the 70s, it dropped down to 2, and then in the 90s, you still had Snipes store, which still stands. But I worked there when I went to high school. I worked there during college summers. But anyway, there's no stores at all. If you leave the Mudcat Stadium on just outside of Johnston County and drive all the way to Selma, there's not one operating store on Highway 39 at all. There's one that's being rebuilt that caught on fire. But so I think the store really is needed, especially for the 39 part. And then there's growth there. They're building a subdivision over there. So I just think I'm all for it, and I live right below it and adjacent to it. But I just think it's time to get a store in that particular area, especially to help people going down 39 or off that area, rather than having to go all the way up to Stansel's Chapel or down to the Grocery Bag or Harris Teeter. So I'm just stating that I think it's a good idea to have it, and I think they'll put in a good store that benefit the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Begin this for or against thing.
Yeah, someone's coming in.
Yes, ma'am. Right.
Yes, I'm Brenda Creech, and I live right there in the roundabout at 3942, and the convenience store will be going right across the street from me. And I'm really concerned about this because of all the crime that comes with having a convenience store. And I'm just afraid that I'll never be able to sleep at night worrying about that. And well, I'm just at a loss for words. I really am. It's this convenience store right down the road from me on 42 Highway, a couple of miles. And it's one at 39, just a few miles. And
Ms. Creech, did you present this as part of the record to the clerk?
I did.
Okay.
And
There's about 46 signatures on here. All these local people live in that neighborhood community.
yes. And I stay by myself. And I'm just really concerned about the crime that goes on. And traffic is so congested out there already, and it will be more so with the traffic that's going to come with the convenience store. And I'm not against a convenience store if it wasn't for so much crime that goes on in the area with the convenience store.
Would you elaborate in regard to crime?
Well, I know there's been a lot of break-ins up at the 42 store and the 39 store. It was a murder up there back some time ago.
Okay, I was just wondering, your definition of the crime.
Yeah. All right, any other questions for Ms. Creech?
Chairman, I just want to, oh, no. Oh, wait.
Okay. Ms. Creech, thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you. All right, anyone else wishing to speak? All right, if not, I will close the public discussion portion of this hearing and call on Mr. Newton to summarize and present the planning board's recommendations.
Yes, sir. As it relates to case 22-13, Planning Board does recommend approval. Offers for your consideration a resolution of statement of consistency as well as the 11 conditions as included in your staff, or in the staff report.
All right, any questions or clarifications on the conditions from the board?
That was just a question I had, and I was hoping it would maybe make her feel a little bit better, that it looks like you guys did reduce the hours of operation to 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., which will hopefully cut down on some crime concerns if it's not open very late in 24 hours.
All right, I see there's no overnight parking, and then you have typical landscaping, signage, the lighting requirements you had mentioned, and then the traffic.
I'm concerned about cars coming off that circle because there's just not a stop there anymore. Most of the time, you just come out of that circle and head south on 39, and I think the property extends to about 450 feet south of the DOT property. So I don't know, it could be a concern, but if there's a turn lane there, it might mitigate that somewhat.
Mr. Chairman, this is, I think it's in my district. Clearly, we're all concerned about crime. But if you're going to have a convenience store, this is about as good a place as you could have it. And Ted, as far as a roundabout, if we could, if you go to Europe, drive the roads over there with the roundabout, you would wish that the United States never had a stoplight.
Yeah.
With all these cross sections and all these wrecks, because on the roundabouts, there are very few wrecks. Traffic moves great. The more roundabouts we can have, the better off we'd be. So I think we should support this because there is a need in that community for a store.
Well, we rezoned property at the 2 intersections down at Thanksgiving for a convenience store. Hadn't been built. And there's a new store down 2 miles to the east. I guess I've always felt like a person ought to be able to do on their own land what they wanted to within reason. But when they buy land that was rezoned, that was zoned something else, and then immediately try to rezone it against the locals' will, if there's a big uproar, that's where I have a problem with it. If it was fully acceptable in the community, then I'd support it. But my concern is these 46 local residents right here.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I looked at it in regard to our legal obligation, as far as the facts submitted, I can't find anything that's been submitted in the contrary, other than the worry about crime at a convenience store, which is a hazard. I being an owner of one, it's always a hazard, but I think it's the exception rather than the rule. But I can't, from the information submitted and the evidence, I can't find a reason not to support it. And it brings back memories when we used to sell cucumbers over there at Snipes',
The grated there.
Mr. Chairman, just to get it on the floor, I'll make a motion that we approve it.
All right, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I do have one. I would say, when I'm looking through the planning board minute, it looks like there were 5 people who spoke at the planning board meeting against. And I know, I haven't counted, but I'll take your word. There's 46 names on here. I don't know where they're from or any of that.
I recognize some of them.
Information. Yeah, I recognize a few, but recognize all of them. So I'll just throw that in there. But if there's not any other discussion, we do have a motion and a second. So all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. All right, next up, we have case 2214. I will now open the rezoning hearing and ask Mr. Newton to give us the background, and we can ask him any questions that we need to this time.
Give it one moment.
I was, this is safe.
This takes me back about 6 years ago when we used to fill the window.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. What we need now is a solar farm.
Yes, sir. Case 22-14. This is a rezoning and special use, and this is a reversion of a process that we previously had been operating under, and that has now since been eliminated. However, this application, just for the record, this application was submitted prior to the adoption of conditional zoning and elimination of special use districts, special use permits. So this case does involve a rezoning of 1 acre tract of a larger portion of 27 acres, 26 acres, I may be mistaken about that number, located at 628 Smith Road in the Cleveland Township, from agriculture residential to agriculture residential special use district. Owner, William Otis and Teresa Bird. William Otis Bird and Teresa Bird. The applicant is USCOC of NC LLC. And the special use request is for a cell tower and fenced compound. Services in this area are provided by Macklemore Fire District and CNS Rescue. The land is currently zoned AR and is used for agriculture purposes. Surrounding zoning and land uses are AR and used for agriculture and residential purposes, and there is immediately to the north a residential development. Traffic concerns, Smith Road, there were no counts available, and Smith Road does not appear on our comprehensive transportation plan as needing improvement. This property is noted, is indicated to be in a primary growth area in accordance with our comprehensive land use plan. We do engage and utilize a third-party consultant to do wireless communication tower reviews, and that was done by our consultant Cityscape. And they did a full review, noting that it does check the box for our requirements, our special use requirements for the majority of them. One thing to note, in siting cell towers, there's a prioritization for that, and that was, we do require the applicants evaluate or analyze that prioritization. So just for clarity's sake, your siting preferences are as follows. So on existing wireless communication facilities, and once these are from most preferred to least preferred, existing wireless telecommunication facilities on county-owned property without substantial modification of the tower or structure, on other existing wireless telecommunication facilities without substantial modification of the tower or structure, on existing county or private property with substantial modifications, on county-owned properties or facilities, on properties in areas zoned business, zoned for business use, and on properties in areas zoned for rural use, and on properties in areas zoned for residential use. One note in the consultant's report to staff was that the applicant has chosen the second to last siting preference, which is on properties in areas zoned for rural use. And there is a statement provided as required, provided by an engineer, RF engineer, addressing that every effort was made to co-locate on other facilities and do the analysis based on the siting preferences list, and that was done. I will be glad to answer any questions you may have, and I do think our consultant, we do have a representative from our consultant here this evening if you have any questions, technical questions for them as well.
Barrister.
Yes, sir.
For the planning board, staff recommendation was denial.
Yes, sir.
Based on subject property and its design does not accomplish Objective 2 of the comprehensive plan in mitigating visual pollution, and residential development adjacent to proposed tower sitting. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
You still stand on that?
Yes, sir, we do. We felt like there was opportunities with the acreage that exists there of the property owner to site the tower on that property so that to minimize the impact, the visual impact for that development to the north, or adjacent, that is to the north but adjacent to this property. We still stand behind that as staff. However, planning board has made a recommendation. We'll get to that a little later.
Okay.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
From the road, it's woods you can't see out there. The middle part of the track, is that an open field?
The middle part is an open field cropland. I'm assuming it was cropland at one time, or it may still be. There is, and obviously in discussions with the applicant, they had looked at other potential sites with the owner of the tract. There were some issues and valid issues, I will say that, of access from Smith Road in certain areas, and there's some wetland concerns in some of the treed area or forested area you see there.
Yeah, the only road connection is on that northeast edge. Okay.
Mr. Newton, I did want to just clarify on the engineering drawings that we have and I guess on the GIS map that has a square parcel kind of in the center of that with the one on it. That is not the same acreage that we're talking about, because this is only 263 feet from it.
That's correct. The parcel you're seeing in the center, the 1 acre parcel, is actually a new parcel, newly created parcel, and that is to serve as a home site, from what I understand, of the property owner.
Okay.
Okay, and if I just want to make sure I understand, in your discussions, and I think what I heard you just say is there was some discussions about moving the tower away from the residence and the subdivision to the property to the north.
Yes, sir.
And that was decided not to.
Yeah, we began those discussions early upon initial discussion with the applicant about the siting of a tower in this area. Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. So it would be roughly somewhere up here. So, okay, I'm sorry about that. Any other questions for Mr. Newton at this point? And so let me just make sure. So we have the rezoning portion first, and depending on the outcome of the rezoning, then we either move forward or not with the special use.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. All right. If no other questions for Mr. Newton, I'll ask the applicant to come forward and state their case.
Hello.
Good evening.
How are you all?
Good.
My name is Emily Lauer, and I'm here on behalf of U.S. Cellular. As mentioned, they are looking to do a new tower at 716 Smith Road. They have worked very hard to make this presentable and applicable to meet all of your standards. They are doing 100 by 100 and fencing in 56 by 65 foot. They will have a 30-foot easement off of Smith Road. They have made sure that all the guidelines are met for a fall zone radius for the tower. And they will have it landscaped to help hide the bottom of the tower so that just the top is showing. You will notice on some of your photo simulations that there are a few that do show, but the others, they do not. They did have to move this out of the wooded area because that is a wetland, so they couldn't engineer it properly to put it completely within the woods. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions you all may have.
Any questions for the applicant? Did you say Lauer?
Yes.
Ms. Lauer? So, go ahead.
I got a couple.
Go ahead.
Jim. I think the planning director alluded to possible other sites within that location. Can you elaborate on why this particular site was selected?
I know that they looked at, all of the existing towers in the area, but they will not work because this is a tower designed to fill in a coverage gap. With all the new technology, all of your older towers are where they used to cover, 15, 20 miles. Those are all shrinking down to 5 and 6 miles. So that's why you're seeing more and more towers popping in. And from the way it looks, there's, a lot of residential in that area. So this was one of the more promising areas to help put that in and be able to meet all the setbacks.
Any other questions? If not, I did have one. So were there any other sites considered within this parcel itself?
Yes, I believe they did, but this was what worked best for the landowner and what they use the property for to help stay out of their way and them still be able to use their property as they do now.
Okay. Fair enough. Any other questions for the applicant? If not, I'll ask anyone else who's here to speak if they would come forward. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry. I'd moved on in my head. If there's anyone else here to speak, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
I'm nervous.
Don't be nervous.
That's all right. We are too, so yeah, we are too. So
We just like
join
you,
join us.
What are you, we're just.
Yeah, that's right. There's only 7 of us we're looking at. We're looking at all of them, so yeah.
My name is Donna Colley, and my address is 259 Lancaster Run, Smithfield. My husband is Stephen Colley, and I live approximately 165 meters. And my dad was like, you better take a stick and show them. A lot of people don't know meters. We're used to yards, but there's a little bit, a meter stick.
39.36
yeah, 39,
inches.
okay,
Yeah.
But when we were first informed of the proposed cell tower, we were mostly concerned with how ugly and how unnatural we thought it would look. We were concerned with it being an eyesore and it being so close to us. We were also concerned with our decreased property value to start with. But as we started to research the effects, Steve and I, looking on, the research we did of living so close to this cell tower, we were shocked to learn of all the health complications associated with living so close to a cell tower. Like I said, when I did the math and calculated it, we were, 165 meters, which is so close. As you know, cell towers work by emitting energy in the form of RF radiation. That's a form of energy in the electromagnetic spectrum that's close to and including microwaves. We're familiar with microwaves. In fact, I was told this was a microwave tower. But as I researched, I found the majority of published studies in different countries have shown a relationship between the distance from cell towers and a variety of health complaints and complications. They have found that the closer to the towers people live, there is an increased incidence of reported physical symptoms. And when I say close here, I mean within a 500-meter range of a cell tower. Some of these physical symptoms include headaches and migraines. That was one of the biggest of every list that topped it. Insomnia, brain fog and reduced cognitive ability, nausea, fatigue and irritability, dizziness, depression and anxiety, heart palpitations and tachycardia, poor concentration, memory loss, itchy and burning skin, restlessness, both mental and physical, a loss of libido, fertility problems and miscarriages, an increased risk of cancer, dementia, and Alzheimer's. In Environmental Research, Volume 181, published February 2020, and Physicians for Safe Technology stated that a 500-meter buffer from cell towers is recommended due to reported health effects and limiting liabilities to cities. We realize that we need cell towers. We use cell phones, iPads, etc. But of all the research I have done and of all the studies I've read, show evidence that cell phone towers need to be at least 500 meters from nearby homes, schools, and hospitals. In Environmental Research, Volume 161 of July 2018, a Swiss research body found a link between EMF exposure and an increased risk of leukemia. A German study, and I read it, by Edgar, Hagen, Lucas, and Vogel, I hope I'm not killing their names, showed that the risk of newly developing cancer was 3 times higher among patients who had lived during the past 10 years within a distance of 400 meters from a cell tower in comparison to those who lived further away. An Israeli study, it was just a fascinating study, research conducted by Ronnie Wolf, MD, and Danny Wolf, MD, at the Tel Aviv University and published in the International Journal of Cancer Prevention, stated that the relative risk of cancer to be over 4.15 times higher for those living 350 meters or less from a cell tower. The International Agency for Research on Cancer has classified RF radiation as possibly carcinogenic to humans based on limited evidence of a possible increase in risk for brain tumors among cell phone users. The World Health Organization's International Association for Research on Cancer classifies RF radiation as possibly carcinogenic for humans and acknowledges that more research really is necessary. Harvard-trained Dr. Andrew Wild at the University of Arizona's Medical Center issued a report saying that we simply don't know enough about the potential health risk of long-term exposure to RF energy from cell towers. In Science of the Total Environment, Volume 409 of September 2011, Doe performed a 10-year study examining the distance from cell towers and cancer clusters. He and his colleagues found a highly significant increase in those living within 500 meters of a cell tower. Dr. Robin, I can't see his name, Bernhoft, president of the American Academy of Environmental Medicine, told Fox News that people who live near cell towers and antennas are in jeopardy. Also, one day, this cell tower may be used for 5G communication since it's definitely on the rise. 5G radiation is a type of microwave radiation, as you know, with a higher frequency. Only 2.45 gigahertz is used by a microwave to cook food, but 5G is predicted to be about 24 gigahertz to 300 gigahertz. The higher frequency 5G radiation would be much more damaging radiation to living organisms, according to Kevin Modis of the U.S. Brain Tumor Association. Being a survivor of breast cancer myself and having gone through surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation, I can tell you that my research scares me. It scares me because we are only 165 meters from the proposed tower. I think we're just too close to the tower. We are well within the 500-meter recommended zone. Our neighbors are also just too close to the tower. One of my neighbors, Lynn Matthews, who lives in the first house on the left at 77 Lancaster Run, her husband's here, has also suffered from cancer and is currently undergoing chemotherapy now. Her home is also about 165 meters or even closer, as we were trying to figure out exactly where the tower would be from the proposed tower site. I have another neighbor, Suzanne Benoit, who lives at 369 Lancaster Run, has also suffered from breast cancer. She also lives within about 200 meters from the tower, well within the 500-meter recommended buffer zone. I understand the need for cell towers, but I know that Johnston County has so many other sites that would work for this cell tower that would allow for the 500-meter recommended zone. Just asking for this 500-meter zone. I have also always been a supporter of landowners having the right to do what they want to do with their property. But as I thought about this example. I love antiques. And suppose I found an antique, iconic McDonald's sign, and I decided to put it 165 feet in the air in my yard, and I was going to light it up at night. Is that really fair to my neighbors? What if they hate it? What if the sign released energy in the form of radiation? Is that fair to my neighbors? And I think, the answer is no. This cell tower interferes with the health and well-being of all of the surrounding homes, not just our neighborhood, but all the surrounding homes and neighborhoods in our area. Just because we can't see, feel, or smell electromagnetic radiation coming from a cell tower doesn't mean it's not harmful to our health. And just because there's so many cell phone towers around doesn't mean they're not harming our health. So much more research is needed, and many studies are being done right now. But these studies take years, they take time, and to show the long-term effects that will take years to complete. Meanwhile, as homeowners of Johnston County, we pray that you will listen to the advice given by your planning board, stated that proposed cell tower would be just too close to the surrounding homes and neighborhoods. Your planning board also said that the tower would be an eyesore and decrease property values. Your planning board did not recommend this rezoning petition. Our homes are just too close to this proposed cell tower. This cell tower would interfere with the health and well-being of all of my neighbors. It would decrease our quality of life. So we pray that you will all vote no to this rezoning petition. And we do thank you for everything, all your time and everything you do for the citizens of Johnston County. And to our neighbors, William Otis and Teresa Bird, we have nothing against you. We think you're good people, and we hope you understand that we're not trying to be bad neighbors. We just think the cell tower is just too close. And I thank you for your time. And I have a couple of handouts that I wanted to give you to look at, with some of the data, that shows some of the effects.
I've got a question for you, Donna, while you're handing that out. Do you have cell phone service at your house?
If you'll just hand me out, we'll pass them.
Yeah, there we go. We'll take it. Thank you.
Do I have?
Yeah, get back at the microphone.
Do I have?
Do you have any trouble getting phone calls? Does anyone on that road have any trouble getting phone calls?
I've had U.S. Cellular myself, and I had no trouble with it. I've had Verizon. I've had, what else have I had? Well, right now, my family kind of decided to go with AT&T, so we did that. But we haven't had any problem where we live. I haven't.
Where do you live?
I live at 259 Lancaster Run.
Okay. I'm looking at a map.
259.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fifth House.
Okay. Okay. And you got cell service? Okay.
I do. I have
Okay.
fine. Never had it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else wishing to speak?
Maybe we can get a hand count of how many degrees would hurt.
Well, I'll see what the next one. And I will say, if you have similar, hopefully not the same scientific information, but similar information, we'd ask just one person come forward. So.
I don't have any scientific information, but.
Thank you, Tim.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me.
Sorry, Mr. Matthews. Yeah.
All I want to say is, I walked out when I got the letter saying that they were going to do a balloon test. I didn't have to do anything but walk out my back door, saw the balloon up there, followed the balloon to the base, and it was just a mere short walk. All right? I've driven around and seen cell towers as I'm driving, and I'm always looking like this. When I walk out of my back door and I'm looking at the balloon, I'm doing this, which means I'm right under it. Okay? My wife does have cancer. She has to take chemo daily. She's her immune system is compromised. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this one out. Okay? That's not scientific, that's just reality. The study said they didn't recommend it based on the reduced values of our property. It would reduce our values. It reduces how much money you guys get to spend. The staff suggested not to do it, but yet we're here. All right? All I got to say is I can't think of any reason to vote for this unless it was in my backyard and I'm getting the money for the service. That's the only reason I can think of. It's detrimental to our community. And Ted, you had the question, cell phone service. I and Stephen and Donna called everybody in the neighborhood using cell phones. In fact, I don't think anybody, well, most of the people in the neighborhood don't even have a landline anymore. Yeah. So we got great cell phone service. Okay? We don't, I mean, I'm not saying you don't need it, but lack of communication isn't it. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews. Yes, sir.
I'm Stephen Sharp. I'm at a 115 Lancashire Run. I probably actually have the property that's actually the closest to this thing. I live right next to 10 there. Yeah, it's very close. It's very, you come in and it's going to look right straight up. So I'd like to want to talk a little bit about externalizing costs here. We have, I think, a situation where we could do better in design, but we don't want to because the cost is being incurred by the person doing the design work and doing the cost of the construction. But we're incurring the loss, the costs, and our property values, and then, of course, we have health considerations that I think we all need to remember as well. And so I think, as it is now, I think it could be done better with a little more design work, or we could find another spot for it. So as it is now, I ask you to go ahead and nix this thing as we can, and, revisit it, or see if we can do better. We definitely, can get to it in other places on that property, so it does not have to be. If she thought it's 168 meters, her house is probably less than 100 a mile. And so, and I've got little kids and dogs and, typical stuff. But we're going to take a hit on our property values while other people are going to, take in some money on it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I apologize. This was briefly put together because my husband and I have been busy with a family tragedy, and my printer's out of ink. So if I struggle a little bit, this is brief, but I might stutter a little bit. My name's Denise Kennedy Newhart, and I've been a residential real estate broker and NC certified residential appraiser for over 25 years. My husband and I live at 444 Lancashire Run. In all my time in brokerage, working with sellers, buyers, and as an appraiser, helping lenders, investors, buyers, and sellers, I have never seen a positive impact of a cell tower on residential property. While the adjustment for a property can vary greatly, the impact has always been negative. This is not my personal view. This is the result of the comparison of properties with similar features against properties that do not have cell towers in their immediate vicinity or view. We work as appraisers and brokers to compare properties as closely as apples to apples as possible to determine property value. With any of my clients, I have always worked to supply each with adequate information so that they can make an informed decision on what most to consider with the most important investment of their lives. I'm not against technology, but we do not firmly know the health impact of these towers. The National Association of Realtors in March of this year cites cell towers, most noted for this article of 5G towers. They need further study. The American Cancer Society for several years has cited the need for more study on these towers. Cell towers are generally considered unsightly, and I have had buyers that do not want to be near them for the potential health concerns, as well as being an eyesore that sticks out like a sore thumb, even with the generally poor attempt at disguising them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Next.
I didn't come here to speak, but I feel the urge to. My name is Gwendolyn Stott, and I live at 299 Lancashire Run, and I'm a little nervous.
It's all right. That's all right. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that we still have quite a bit of open land in our section of Johnston County, and it seems to me that there's got to be a place where the cell tower can be put where it will not impact the values. We moved here 10 years ago. We moved here from under the flight path of RDU Airport because of the peace and the quiet, because I'm a country girl, and we wanted the peace and quiet and all the benefits that come with beautiful Johnston County. And, our home is our greatest asset. So, of course, the prospect of having our greatest asset, the value of it, negatively impacted by this is not something that we desire. But it just seems to me that with the amount of land that we still have available in Johnston County, there has got to be a place where we can put this cell phone tower, if it is truly needed, where it will not affect existing homes to this extent. If they want to build homes around it, then future owners will know that it's there, and they can take that into consideration in their decision of whether or not to purchase their home. But it's not right to inflict it on an existing neighborhood that has been there for so long, when there are other places, maybe not as convenient to this particular owner, but there've got to be other places that it could be put. And I just would appreciate your consideration when you're making that decision. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone? Yes, ma'am. I think you've been trying to step up there for a few times now.
That's okay. All right. My name is Teresa Bird. And yes, I am one of the owners. My husband and I owned the land. 5 years ago, a gentleman named Jerry Sharp came to our door and asked, or told us that he was looking at landowners on Smith Road, specifically to put a cell tower because there was a lack of service. I have U.S. Cellular, and for the past at least 3 years, my service has gotten less and less as time passes. They talked about putting it somewhere else. You know, he said for quite a while, trying to find somebody that would allow, you know, the use of property for the cell tower. Couldn't find anybody. We agreed. The original site, like Mr. Braston said, was deemed wetlands, and so we pulled it out. The little square you were talking about on your map is where our house is going. We had previously lived on Crantock Farm, which you know is now being developed. My family, my husband's family's been there 65 years. So now we find ourselves in a position that we now have to move. So we'll be looking at that thing with no, you know, with no cover whatsoever. But, you know, that's kind of beside the point. We did try to work with U.S. Cellular. The site across the field where Mr. Newton had talked about to the north, we've actually cleared some of that out so we can put farm shelters and our farm equipment there, as we are now in the process of moving off Crantock Farm. But everybody wants good cell service, and like I said, I never go out on the road anymore. 210 Highway, Smith Road, Cleveland Road, I drop calls every time I try to call in certain areas out there. U.S. Cellular, years ago, I would have put the service up against any other provider. It was that good. But as the higher quality, so to speak, signals go out, our calls continue to drop, trying to transfer from tower to tower. That's what I've been told every time I have called, is I'm dropping between towers. I'm hoping that this will help with my cell service as well as other people in our community. It was especially scary a couple of years ago when my daddy was terminal, and I was going back and forth to Clayton every day to look after Daddy until we moved him to my sister's house. She lives on off of Sanders Road. Well, I dropped calls. I went for miles on the road from Daddy's house in Clayton to my house with no cell service, late at night, sometimes by myself. And I'll tell you, it's scary, especially if you think about being in one of those spots and have an emergency come up and not have the service. My sister's house off of Sanders Road, I can go there. She can tell you, I drop calls on Raleigh Road, I drop calls on Sanders Road, I drop calls on Cleveland Road, 210 Highway, Polenta Road, and Smith Road. My cell service has gotten so bad because there is a tremendous need for a tower in our location. I hate that some people are dealing with cancer and that's scary to them. I do. I have done some research myself. You'll find pros, you'll find cons. You'll find one article that says this and one article that says the other. We don't know. I'll give you that. We don't know any of the negatives. but we don't know what we don't know. And do I think we need research? Of course I do. But we all rely on our cell phones, and when we're out on the road, if I need to call 911, I want to be able to call 911. And there's so many times that I just can't do it. I've got one of the latest smartphones, and when I've got service, it's wonderful. But there's so many times that I don't have service, not even to call 911. And I've tried AT&T, I've tried Verizon, I've been with U.S. Cellular for over 20 years now, and I did go get the phone from one company, try it out. You know, you can get the little trial period, and it didn't work any better for me. So I know you have a job on your hands trying to please everybody, and I don't want to be intrusive to our neighbors, but I don't know what else we could do to make this any better for everybody, us included. So I am asking you to please help those of us in my community, and there are a lot of us that don't have reliable service in our area. I don't know how they can be, you know, a street over and have service, and I go back to where my house is, I've got nothing. Absolutely no service whatsoever at all where we're moving to. So I am asking that you do support this today.
Thank you, Ms. Burton.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself and step.
You need to be, you need to ask. No, you need to ask.
Can I? What do I ask?
Yeah, you just need to tell us what your reason.
Oh, I apologize. Mr. Chairman, my family, we have family that adjoins this property, so I think at this time I should recuse myself and step down from my vote on the Indian camp side.
Is that okay with the rest of the board?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So move she be recused.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, my name's Cecil Lee. I've lived 278 Lancashire Run for 20 years. I've had all kind of cell service. I've had Verizon for, I've never had a problem with cell phone. Never had anybody come to my house, had an issue with cell service. And the GIS, there are 2 more houses there on that lot that are not showing on that map that are close to that also. But I would just say, I know there's 38 and I understand, but you're slamming it right against the property lines of these people in Lancashire Run. There's 30 acres there. Too sure there could be somewhere, if you got to put it on that property, there's got to be somewhere else that would accommodate it. I'm not against, I obviously wouldn't build a house right beside a cell tower, you know, if I were building there, but I've been there 20 years, and I hate to look out my front door every day and see a cell tower. And thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir. All right, thank you. Anyone else?
How you doing? I am Chance Benoit. I'm the son of David and Suzanne Benoit, who live at 369 Lancashire Run. And, you know, this is anecdotal evidence right here, but I recently moved back out there. Where I was living in Raleigh, we had good cell service, good Wi-Fi. And the Wi-Fi we had was actually a business package. We use a lot of it. We use it all the time. We stream everything. We do a lot on our computers. I moved out to my parents. Their Wi-Fi was not cutting it. And the service did. The cell service through Verizon has been excellent. I used a hotspot. I could stream anything I wanted to through my computer, through my PC, through my TV, and until I could get them to up their package, I stayed on my hotspot the entire time. Now, I know that some people may not have good cell service some places. However, out there, it was not only good enough to hold a call, it was good enough to watch a 2-hour-long movie. It was good enough to play games for 5 hours at a time and never drop. Now, some people may have trouble driving out there on the phone, jumping between cell services. I cannot attest to that because I have never had that problem. However, I can say that the service out there is strong enough to do what the Wi-Fi in the middle of Raleigh can also support. I just wanted to say that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
Dan Glover, 446 Lancashire Run. To speak of the cell service, my house is at the end of the cul-de-sac on Lancashire Run, and you can see the house down, it's downhill just a little bit, and behind me is my shop. The ceiling of my shop is below the lower level of my house. The shop is all metal. It's lined with brick on 3 sides. It's got metal doors, and I have fantastic cell phone service and Wi-Fi, not Wi-Fi, cellular data. I've come home from places that don't have Wi-Fi, and I forget to turn my Wi-Fi back on, and my cell service is so fast, I think I'm on my Wi-Fi until I look down and I don't even see it on. There's no issue with Wi-Fi in our area or cellular data. And I'm comparing that cellular data to our 4 gigabyte service that we have on Wi-Fi. So it blows my mind how phenomenal the service is just on cellular data, let alone making phone calls. That's easy. So that's one thing, but what I don't like is the fact of the potential value of the properties going down, which affects you guys because we pay taxes based on our property value. So less property value, less taxes for Johnston County. That's just my take on the whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
How y'all doing? Jerry Crocker. I'm at 100 Lancashire. I didn't come prepared to speak, but I'm the second house on the right, so I'll be looking out my front door right at the tower. So I just felt like I needed to speak my opposition. And then also note in that Cityscapes consultation that there were 5 other site preferences that were above this one. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Parker. Mr. Colley?
Stephen Colley, 259 Lancaster Run, Smithfield, and I want to bring your attention to just some points that have already been made. Just reiterate them, that the planning staff recommendation was denial due to not accomplishing that objective 2 of the comprehensive plan, migrating visual pollution, as there's adjoining established residential development adjacent to the proposed tower siting. And I know this is in y'all's agenda on page 138. I just want to make, just, it's amazing that planning staff did not recommend it. And I want to give you a copy of the consultants that did the study for the planning department. And on page 3, they discuss their analysis of this.
Take them all. We can pass them around.
We'll pass them around.
Yeah, thank you.
But just a few things, the Johnston County Planning Department hired Cityscape consultants to prepare the telecommunications site review. And I would like, provide y'all a copy of it. And if you look on page 3, it talks about their analysis and their review of the merits of the cell tower application on page 3. But then it talks about the cell tower abuts to a single-family area. And the photo simulations show potential visual impacts to these properties. And the applicant had reduced the proposed cell tower. They agreed to reduce it from 195 to 160 foot. It just kind of to show that they're trying to put something somewhere where it just doesn't fit. And it also kind of states that the applicant stated due to the restrictions by the landowner concerning the use of certain parts of the land for construction limited the proposed cell tower site on the 30 acres. So it sounds like they could have found a better spot on this 30 acres to put the cell tower. And just again, I'd just like to, for y'all not put something where it doesn't really fit. And there's many of my neighbors here, I wish they'd all get up here and talk. There's anybody else in Lancaster that doesn't want this?
There you go. That's good
There you
enough.
go.
I mean, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
And we still have some in the hall.
I think, I kind of think we're starting to hear the same thing over and over, but after, unless there's
Just
somebody
let
got
us vote,
something
we'll
totally.
probably make everybody happy.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, so, yeah.
Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman and the board. My name is Julie Woodard, and I think I actually are the one that is worst affected. Steve was first of all when the balloon went up, and then it got shifted. So I'm the third house along, and so it actually is in my backyard. and I'm here for a selfish reason. And I'm sorry to talk about my personal issues, but I got married in that house, and shortly after I married, my husband died of a heart attack, leaving me with an autistic son. I have the cancer genes, and I've had lumps removed. I'm the only person left for my son. I don't want that tower because I don't want cancer, and I don't want my son to be an orphan because he has to live with me for the rest of his life, and you have to feel sorry for him for that, but that's his burden, not mine. So I'm here for selfish reason, and I want to say no to this because I want to be here. I shouldn't have to move house to save my life, to look after my son when I got married in that home. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, as I said, I think we've probably heard very similar testimonies on both behalves. Yes, sir. We'll allow one more.
I'm Otis Bird. This property belongs to me. I bought it in '79. At the time I bought this property, steeplechase didn't exist. As far as the way they felt about the looks of the tower, I didn't like the looks of the big houses when they built them. I'm a farmer. And they took a good piece of farmland and put buildings on it. But anyway, they're there. I never objected to them. It was their land. This is my land. I don't know of nowhere else on it that we could put a tower that would work. I'm going to be moving right down at the foot of it almost. Like I said, I'm a farmer. I farmed the Crown Tuck all my life, and other farms, I've lost them all to houses. That's done away with a good portion of my income. I need the income off of this tower because I've got to buy a house now to put over there. You know, I'm 72-year-old. There ain't many more years to keep working on one. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Mr. Bird.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so I'll ask council, is there any reasons to continue the public hearing, or can I?
This is a legislative hearing, and so the board has wide discretion with regards to that, and perhaps if you're inclined to move on, if there's nobody that has anything that is different that you haven't already heard, then I think that it would be appropriate for you to move on.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, in my opinion, I think we've heard what we need to hear to move on. So at this time, I'm going to close the hearing, and let me see what my next instructions are here. I'm going to close the public discussion and call Braston to come forth and summarize and present the planning board's recommendation.
Yes, sir. As it relates to case 22-14 and the rezoning from agricultural residential to agricultural residential special use district, planning board does recommend approval and offers for your consideration a resolution statement of consistency.
Okay, and I did just want to make, I guess, a clarifying statement, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we basically have three things to consider as far as where this is appropriate rezoning, and one is consistency with the comprehensive plan. The second is if it's in the public interest, and the third, it simply says reasonableness, but includes size, physical condition, benefits and detriments to the landowners, the neighbors, and the surrounding community, the relationship between current and actual permissible development, and a couple other things in there. But basically, those are the things: consistency with the plan, public interest, and reasonableness.
That's correct.
Okay.
All accurate.
Any other questions for Commissioner? I mean, for Director Newton? No. Okay. So with that, I will close the rezoning hearing and turn it over to the board for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, there was a lot of discussion today about putting the tower somewhere else. Surely they can find, if you look on the map, you can find large wooded tracts in different places. But the whole point, I think, of the cell company has got to be in a strategic location, or they don't need to have it there. Every time I go out Cleveland Road, if I'm on the phone, I lose a call. And I know it's spotty here and there. Perhaps everybody on that road has continuous service, and I appreciate that. But at the same time, I'm also concerned about, I understand electromagnetic induction. and I'm concerned about the health benefits that Ms. Cawley talked about. I would not be in favor of this butted up against all those houses, but if they could find a place somewhere in that southeast corner or something away from all those houses, I see it as a public need in terms of that whole area, not just on that road, but as far as maintaining communications.
And I would agree with that. I think we've, saw from the staff recommendation that it didn't accomplish objective 2 in our comprehensive plan. I haven't heard any testimony or evidence or information at all that indicates it's in the public interest, and then also the reasonableness, particularly as it relates to the neighbors and the surrounding community. So that would be my reasons for opposing this.
Is the board ready for a motion?
Yes, please.
In the manner of case 22-14, I would move that the rezoning request be denied based on it is not inconsistent with the comprehensive land plan, it is not in the public interest, and it is not in regard to the reasonableness, size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area proposed to be rezoned. The benefits and determinants of this landowners, the neighbors, and the surrounding community, the relationship between the current, actual, and permissible development of tract and adjoining areas, and the development that would be permissible under the proposed amendment, and any changed conditions warranting the amendment.
I second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
I would be supportive of this motion, but I would be in favor of rezoning an area if it were relocated somewhere on that track, like the southeastern portion.
Commissioner, we don't have that.
Southwest.
Yeah, we don't have that before us.
I understand, that's just my discussion.
No, but we don't have that
Commissioner,
before us right now.
the other Commissioner Braswell enters, we have a motion on the table in front of us to deny the rezoning request. And we're in the discussion phase. I think any other discussion on that?
I think there's something that's known as, it's probably a good idea, just not in this location. It's just really not. If I was those property owners, I would feel exactly the same way. If I walked out of the back of my house, I couldn't say I feel any differently, so.
I'll call for the question.
All right. All those in favor of the motion denying the rezoning, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, being that there is the rezoning was denied, there's no need to have the special use hearing portion of this, so we will move on to the planning activity report and comprehensive land use update. They give a second to clear out, so we can hear.
Thank you all. Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
They're almost out.
I guess I got too much engineer in me. I never saw a cell tower as unpleasing. To me, it's symmetrical. I don't see it as a detriment.
All right, Braxton, proceed on.
Yes, sir.
I disagree.
Just to give you a brief report, planning activity, really going to focus on land use plan tonight. So as we're getting to that phase where we're close to being ready to bring a draft forward, a full draft forward to the planning board and the Board of County Commissioners. Our last step here is to take the recommendations, the draft recommendations of the land use plan to the public in form of a forum. We will be doing this on June 29th, which is a Wednesday evening, and this will be at the auditorium in the Ag Center here in Smithfield on 210. We will have that public forum. It will begin at 6 p.m. And it will run for 2.5, maybe even 3 hours. The format, we're still discussing the format. will probably be a little bit different than the floating event we've had previously, just so we can really narrow down some specific questions and feedback from the public. It will be more of a format of a presentation, and then there will be an opportunity in some format, not an open mic, but in some format for them to submit questions, concerns, or just some general comments, however they'd like to, and they can be addressed at that meeting or at that forum and after the fact as well. But that, once again, is on June 29th at the Ag Center at 6 p.m. There will be more information to come as we solidify the details and get it to our public information team, who always do an excellent job for us in getting the word out. But from a planning department perspective, we have had an extremely busy, and I know we're closing our fiscal year, and this is not a pitch at all. But we have had an extremely busy year. It's been one of our largest over the last 5, and it has been extremely busy. We do not anticipate that slowing down any in the near future, within the next 12 to 18 months. Our numbers just continue to grow. Every time we think we're at a point where we may see a slowdown, it seems just to increase and get larger. So sort of like drinking water from a fire hose, but we do what we can. But I do appreciate this board's support as we're going forward. I know with budget deliberations and approval of that, we as a staff in general, and I will take it upon myself to speak for all staff here in the county, that we do appreciate the board support that you provide us. Very much appreciated. And that's all I have for you this evening.
All right. Any questions? Any more questions for Braston tonight?
Thank you, Preston.
All right.
Thank you.
I have something before you leave, Preston.
Yes, sir.
All right. Manager reports and comments. All right.
Very briefly, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I placed at your desk this morning a draft easement with CenturyLink for an easement on the property that is our water treatment plant. And I respectfully request that you approve this easement request.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Second.
What are they going to put there?
They're going to put a line, a communications line,
Buried
and it's
cable.
adjacent to our
Yeah,
water
I
line.
I
So,
saw the drawing, yeah. 20 feet apart, right?
yes.
Yeah. Good.
Yes. All right. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. Anything else? All right. Any board reports or comments?
I
Yes, sir.
appreciate you listening to me for a minute. I normally don't say anything in board comments, but the situation with the Clayton High School, that was a tough vote for me. It was a 51-49 vote. And I just want to share with you that if that vote had just been for that school, if it had just been for a field for that school, I would not have supported and voted for that. Because I think that's the responsibility of the school board and the school board's money. But I thought the partnership, the unique partnership between the Clayton High School and the town of Clayton is a model that has a lot of promise to use the millions upon millions of dollars of school facilities for the public at large. And I just, that made the difference for me. And I just want you to know it was a hard vote, but I think it was the right vote.
All right.
I was thinking about the process as that was unfolding. I think it is a good model, and I appreciate all that Adrian has done in getting us to this point. But I kept thinking, is this turned into from a school property to a town property? but I think you guys have taken the steps to, keep it open and a level playing field for everybody. But I'd hate for it to have as a restrictive situation from the town as it has been for the school. You know what I mean? But it is a good start, and I think if we could spread this throughout the county and put all those millions of dollars of facilities, that's been a waste for a long time. Yep.
Commissioner Smith, I appreciate your comments. I was thinking about something you had taught me a year ago. I was thinking about the camel getting his nose under the tent in regard to, okay, where is this going to go? And how's it going to resonate in the rest of the county? It was a tough decision, but I think the benefits for the citizens outweighed the not doing it. So, but I think the nose is creeping under.
Yeah, I hope and pray we made a good decision tonight.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the nose creeping under for me was the press box and bleachers. That was not in our, but I would agree. I mean, I think it is a great model. I know that you'd mentioned the Riverwood situation, and at some point the principals became the decision makers for the communities using or not using the field. And I think that's part of the beauty of this program is it allows the town of Clayton is the one doing the program, so it takes the burden off the principals or assistant principals or athletic directors for programming the fields. And I know we've got Clayton High School in the way. I just found out that Clayton Middle is not under the same situation, but I think that that's probably something that at least it needs to go to Clayton. And look at South Johnston. Yes, they're not in the town, but they do have Benson and Four Oaks that could partner together. So I think there's opportunities for us to be creative. And again, as you all have said, open up those millions of dollars of facilities that we have for relatively little investment on our part to expand those uses and benefit, whether it is a town directing it or the Meadow Athletic Association, whoever it is. There's opportunities there for us to open those facilities to the broader community and utilize those rather than being under lock and key as so many of us are used to in the past. So, and I do commend the superintendent and Brooksmore facilities manager and David Pierce for being open and receptive to making those changes. So I don't have any other comments any other board comments before we adjourn.
Nothing more than to echo what's already been said about that. The model is really what's fantastic about the whole thing. Smithfield crossed that bridge a little bit years ago with the aquatic center when they partnered with the school system to do a shared cost in that. And I think it didn't achieve the level that this is because this opens it up truly to the community. But I'd love to see more of this, and perhaps this incentivizes other people to go out and look at the same model and maybe look at it from that perspective. So I think it was a good vote. I think it was a good opportunity to show our support for something that we've really been asking Adrian for since he came on board, was to work through those hurdles to get the school system to open up their athletic facilities for the public.
Yeah, and I do think that's the beauty of that position. Before we didn't have a point person when the idea came up. I mean, no matter how great the idea, it just faltered because there's nobody to continue on. So
you can understand the reluctance on the part of a principal. If I had a budget and I came in on a Monday morning and a bunch of local folks had torn my field all to pieces, and how am I going to get it ready for my activities at school? But if we've got, in this case, the town, but there'll need to be some entity in every situation and that's the beauty of Adrian, to create those entities or those associations like the Cleveland Athletic Association. Somebody's got to be there to oversee that.
Because at the end of the day, all those facilities belong to the taxpayers of Johnston.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn in just a minute, but what I want to say is I hope that 2024 will bring a recreation bond, since we hadn't had one since 2006 or 7. So I hope this, as I ride out on my white horse. I hope y'all pass a recreation bond.
Maybe Fred will loan you his black hat.
Now, he's going to loan me a bull to ride out.
There we go.
Right
There we
after
go.
we have your party.
All right, well, where did I hear a motion to adjourn in there?
Second.
Right there. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. We got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
See you next time.